Environmental design engineer Clara Bagenal George is an associate at Elementa Consulting. She's also a Mayor of London's design advocate and also an instigator of LETI, the London Energy Transformation Initiative, which last year published the acclaimed Climate Emergency Design Guide. So Clara, can you start by telling me how LETI came about and the progress it's made since 2017?
In 2017, I was frustrated that policy in London, it wasn't necessarily driving the right outcomes. It wasn't taking us in the right direction towards zero carbon. And I was interested if others felt this way. And so started writing articles and giving a few talks. I had a pet peeve about carbon factors, which was a very specific thing. And I was wondering if other people agreed, but more importantly, if others had different issues. You know, everyone in the built environment comes from a different perspective. So I was really keen to bring a host of people from different disciplines together to understand how we as an industry think policy needs to change. It was an instrumental time where the next update of the London plan was being developed. So we started by running a big workshop and invited all different types of people there, and we came up with lots of different ideas on how we needed to change policy. And so we shortly realised we had this group of passionate people that were working towards the same aim, and that's when LETI formed, really, because we thought this was actually just the beginning of a journey for us. And for the first year and a half, we focused on refining our recommendations for policy implementation and working with the GLA. And we had some successes in implementing new policies in the London plan to do with whole life carbon, to do with data disclosure and such. So that was really, really fantastic. And we had about 200, 300 people involved at that time. And then I guess we turned the attention on ourselves and we realised, are we doing enough as built environment professionals? And we realised that we didn't know, because we didn't have a definition of good. You know, we were thinking about percentage less than bad. We were like percentage better than bad. So we were thinking, you know, we're this much better than building regulations, therefore is this good enough? And we didn't know. And we were really clear that we needed new buildings to be zero carbon by 2030 to meet up climate change goals, but we didn't know what that was. So then we focused our attention on defining that. So collaborating with UK Green Building Council, Better Buildings Partnership, REBA, CIBSE and Good Homes Alliance, and working through what a building that meets our climate change targets looks like. What are those targets? And we did a lot of consultation with industry, working on existing frameworks and bringing them forward and really being clear on that. So last year, pretty much this time last year, we published guidance on what a building that is net zero carbon in operation, what that means, which I think was really useful. And then, as you mentioned, in early this year, we published the Climate Emergency Design Guide, which is a free to access guide about how you actually implement those metrics. We also published embodied carbon primer, because that's going to be key to meeting the climate emergency. And we're super pleased that it's had great successes. It's been downloaded now over 30,000 times across 100 countries, and people are implementing it in their projects and in brief setting. So we're really pleased.
Some years ago, you did a thesis on retrofitting of the solid wall Victorian home. And now the government, well, a number of governments have tried to sort this one out about existing housing, but now the government is making $2 billion to fund the Green Homes Grant to retrofit. They aim for 650,000 homes. Now, if you were advising the Minister of State on how to deliver large-scale performance improvements to buildings, what would you say to him?
Well, I suppose I'd start with saying, you know, 2 billion is a good start. You know, to me, it seems massive, but actually it's a very small start. If you were to refurbish all homes, that would only be 77, which is definitely not going to cut it. And even if it supports this 650,000 homes, it's only £3,000 a home, which isn't enough to achieve the carbon reductions that we need to get to zero carbon. There's this problem that poor retrofit can be really dangerous, both to buildings and occupants. It can be done in the wrong way, and the quality assurance and delivery mechanisms to support the Green Homes Grant aren't in place yet. there's insufficient registered contractors or retrofit coordinators to deliver it. So I would say we need retrofit at scale, and that means 500,000 retrofits running simultaneously all the way from now until 2050. It means 2 million people in the retrofit industry, and there's only currently just above 100,000. It means reductions of 60 to 80% of energy demand if we're going to get a chance to even get to net zero. So it's not about a little bit of loft insulation and a new boiler. We're talking about deep retrofit for all homes. So what would I advise? We need a national focus on retrofit as a priority. We need a focus on energy consumption in a way that the average person can understand, can get to grips with. We need a quality assurance process that's simple and trusted. And we need innovative finance products which support retrofit. And lastly, a clear trajectory from the government on policy which sets challenging targets, showing how fuel costs are going to change. Why is gas still 3 times cheaper than electricity when it emits more carbon?
What did you propose doing to solid wall Victorian homes? Because there's a lot of them in the country, and I guess you either have to put something inside or something on the outside. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's right. So it's either external insulation or internal insulation, and now that really depends on the aesthetics of the property, what we're trying to do. It's easier to insulate externally, but depending on what area you're in and how you feel about that, you may want to have internal insulation. You're going to need to replace your windows. You can get really nice now, really good quality, good looking triple glazed replacements for sash windows. You'd need to change your heating from a gas boiler to a heat pump, and you would need to really look at your air tightness detailing.
If we're going to be delivering zero carbon buildings by 2030, we need to be designing them ready by 2025. So do you think we're ready to do that?
That's the big question. I mean, I really believe if we all work together, if we're clear on what the targets are, if we collaborate, if we share knowledge, then we'll get there. But the key thing that we need to work out is on embodied carbon. So LETI have set some embodied carbon targets, but they need to be sense checked with the carbon budgets. So we're trying to understand actually, with the operational energy targets, we're clear on how that fits within the larger UK renewable generation budgets. With embodied carbon, we need to do more work in making sure that the targets we're setting actually will meet the climate emergency, and then we'll have the clarity on what we need to do, and then next, every individual who works in this industry, every organisation that works in this industry needs a clear path on how they're going to get there. How are they going to be designing 100% of their buildings to zero carbon by 2025? We need a clear delivery plan on this. Thinking about if they need to implement training, if they need to understand embodied carbon, looking at post-occupancy monitoring of their buildings they've previously designed or constructed. I think people need a clear plan. They need to check in every quarter, look back. They need to, we need to really ramp up and upskill quickly, and collaborate on doing that. And I believe that if everybody does that, then we'll get there. But it involves us all doing a lot.
But we've had quite a long-term problem of the gap between design and performance. Are we getting better are we closing that gap?
I hope so, because previously our metrics were on building regulations and on policy were all about how can you make your building look like it's performing well on a computer program. Because regulations and policy are linked to a kind of hypothetical model of a building, then it means that as an industry we've been really good at iterating towards something where the model looks like it's performing well, and people have been thinking that means that the building was performing well, but that's not true. So we've been really trying in the last few years to disconnect from that process that isn't working and really focus on the operational outcomes of buildings in use, and people are doing that now. So understanding buildings that they've designed, are they performing as intended? If not, why not? And so I believe we're walking in the right direction, but we've got to make a few leaps.
As we came into COVID-19, one really felt there was a very positive mood towards understanding, dealing with climate change right across the spectrum, really. So do you think now, as we hopefully next year start to come out of COVID-19, do you think COVID-19 would have hindered or accelerated those policies and those attitudes to addressing climate change?
I think that's a tough one, Peter. I think COVID-19 has been a wake-up call to many. It's also showcased how much change can happen really quickly if needed, which is positive. It's inextricably linked with change, and I believe that. I know that a lot of people within the world of sustainability believe that, but I'm really not sure how much the average person within the UK understands that those links. And as you said, last year there was a big focus on climate change in the media. This year the focus, quite rightly, has been COVID. So I'm not really sure. I think we really have the capacity for a green recovery that tackles climate change. It focuses on retrofit. Yeah, I'm generally a glass half full person, so I'm going to say yes. I believe it will accelerate the policies towards address climate change, but I think we need a lot of people shouting about that and trying to support the government in making the changes in the right way.
Clara, thank you very much for those insights, and congratulations on championing this really important aspect of design and development. And good luck with taking this forward and in the post-COVID environment as well. Thank you.
Thank you.